Welcome to another episode of Legal for Tech, the podcast. So, guys, you do recognize my voice. It's always Rosie here. And as I've said many times, this is just for students and young professionals who are very interested in technology and, yes, its regulation. So, today I'm joined by my friend and colleague and great producer of this podcast. Thank you for being here, Giacomo. Hi.
Hi, Rosie. Thank you.
How excited are you today from 1 to 10? Because I'm super excited to have actually a member of the European Parliament today joining us from Brussels, as she said, a very bright Brussels, incredibly so. Alexandra Geese, welcome on the podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
It's such a pleasure to finally meet you. I mean, this is a great honor, and we can't tell you how thankful we are to get to talk to you about this important topic, because today we will be talking about something that's really close to my heart as a woman, but also to the whole group of Legal for Tech as a group that actively protects women and their rights, especially in the digital world. So before we start off with this incredible topic, let us, our listeners, know something about yourself and why you're here today. What's your story? And yes, we revealed that you're a member of the European Parliament, but tell us something about that as well.
Well, I'm here because you invited me to, and I think you probably did that because what I work on is actually the intersection of democracy, how a society is shaped, women's rights, everybody's right, technology, and obviously, as being a lawmaker, legislation that should help to shape a more inclusive and a more equal society, and also promote digital and technological innovation at the same time. So what I did since I've been here, and that is 2019, was working a lot on the Digital Services Act, but because I still believe that social media platforms are a very important place to shape public opinion, and they also have become a weapon in the hands of authoritarian movements, starting from the MAGA movement, in the hands of tech billionaires to influence our political debate and to set agendas. And I've been reelected in 2024, and I've started working a lot on technological sovereignty of Europe because, I mean, legislation is good and important, but it does become a problem when, as a continent, you have the legislation, but you don't have the technology. And most of the products that you use come from a different country or a different continent or two. So building our own technology, building our own technologically companies, hopefully in a better way in Europe, is also a very important goal I've been working on. And I'm from Germany. I don't know if you said that, if you mentioned that. In Europe, we're all Europeans, but I actually grew up in Germany. I spent 22 years in Italy, so I feel a little bit Italian, even if biologically I'm not. But my two daughters are born in Italy, and I'm a member of the Greens.
That's lovely to hear that we are all Italians on this podcast. Haha, again, we did it. No, I'm joking. And as our listeners know, I am based in Germany. So at the end of the day, we're all Europeans, as you said. I wanted to bring you back to a specific date. Let's say it's the 1st of January 2026. Everyone is celebrating, and there's a specific post that starts going around on X, formerly Twitter. And that's kind of women that are starting to realize that specific pictures have been put out containing their likeness, but without clothing. Bikini pictures, naked pictures, videos displaying very hardcore sexual content. The reaction is quite fast. The European Commission, between the 5th and 6th of January, starts kind of issuing communiques to say this is wrong. And then finally, this brings them to an investigation to be started on X, not on the reason why these pictures are circulating, which is that X has a function which is called Grok AI. It's XAI's proprietary LLM, so it's a chatbot, and it allows to do this kind of things. So undressing women specifically. Yes, it has undressed Elon Musk as well, but the impact wasn't the same, I would say, if that's not too reductory. We're back at this day. What's your take? What do you feel is happening? And what's your response as a member of the European Parliament?
Wow, that's a question that I could spend the next 25 minutes on just to unravel all that. Let's say I was shocked but not surprised. Definitely. I was even more shocked by what, in my opinion, was a very belated reaction. You said there was a fast reaction. I mean, what actually did happen was that after a few days, the Commission President, Ursula von der Leyen, said that, well, that's totally unacceptable. And I think that the fact that I think it was a member of the Swedish government was also affected by this helped to raise awareness in political circles, obviously, particularly among female politicians. I still feel that reaction was late because the message, this functionality of Grok on X sends out is that no women can be on X without running this risk. We're kicking the women out of the political debate because unfortunately, a lot of people still believe that political debate is being shaped on X. I don't share that opinion. It's certainly not a free marketplace. But it was a very, very clear message to women. Get out of here. We don't want you in political circles. We don't want you in circles of power. And if you do dare to stay and show your face, this is the kind of violence we will use against you. And it's particularly telling that Elon Musk doesn't do it himself, but he builds a tool and he gives it to men to use. You know, it's like building a gun and then you give it to some children and say, well, just play around, you know, I haven't done anything. And if anything happens, it's not my responsibility. So starting there, the final, I mean, this is clearly illegal because it was not only against women, there were also images from children. Like 3 weeks later, the analysis showed that at least 20,000 images that had been found, and probably there's a lot more, were of children. And according to different studies, I think the most conservative estimate I have seen was 3 million pictures of women in 11 days. And the less conservative ones were around 20 million. And it was, I can't remember the exact share, but it was a really a big majority of all the pictures posted on X. You know, it wasn't a niche thing. 11 million pictures or 3 million pictures, whatever. I mean, that's a lot of women. And I have worked a lot on this topic. You never get rid of these pictures. They stay there. You know, everybody can screenshot them. Everybody can save them. They go onto porn platforms. They go to WhatsApp groups. They go to all kinds of sites. It's not a problem you can solve. It's not solvable. You can, you know, you have this really sexy picture. You can walk into your dentist in 10 years' time and he has got a nude of you on your phone. You go to have an interview with the potential employer and he might have seen you, you know, that way. This is something that haunts women forever, basically. And really, I've worked a lot with victims in the past on this. This is happening. It's creating depression. It's creating anxiety. It has driven women and particularly young girls to suicide. There's a bunch of cases. So this is a very serious crime. So what do we see? At a certain point, we see the commission. We know that now because a German reporter from German Handelsblatt reported on it, that at a certain point, the commission, the technical level of the commission, so the commission is not a monolithic thing. When we talk about the European Commission, they're obviously the officials who do the technical kind of work. And they realized what was going on and they got an investigation ready because this is a systemic risk to gender-based violence, for gender-based violence under Article 34 DSA. Since you are legal people, I can support my preferred article of the DSA. So it's a platform specifically creating a widespread risk for women and creating gender-based violence. This is really a textbook case, basically. I mean, we couldn't have made this up when we wrote that article. This is too daring to have made such an hypothesis up. So the commission prepares this investigation, and it's a Davos week. It's a Monday of the Davos week. Trump is supposed to speak. There's still a threat against Greenland. And what happens, according to German Handelsblatt, the commission president stops the investigation. You know, it's supposed to be announced around midday. And according to the reporting of that journalist, it gets stopped because nobody wants to anger Trump. And this is very, very telling about the role of legislation when it is being weaponized in a geopolitical power play. So you have a law that couldn't be clearer. You have the people, you have the way to implement it. You know who's supposed to implement it. You have the European Commission, who's ready to do that, who has written everything up. And then because of geopolitical power reasons, because the US administration doesn't want us to regulate their tech companies, it gets stopped. And it takes another week. And it takes Donald Trump to step back from militarily invading Greenland to this investigation to start the Monday after a week later. In the meantime, California had already announced they would also open a probe into this and see whether this is illegal under Californian law. And this is what causes Elon Musk actually to step back. So from my point of view, this is rather a failure of European legislation because we have the law. We had extensively discussed sexual violence, image-based sexual violence, because this is what this is. This is not bikini pictures. This is image-based sexual violence. We had discussed that intensively and extensively during the DSA, the work on the DSA, during Trilogue night. It was really a topic. And then in the end, we didn't get a really hard article but we did get this insertion of gender-based violence and the systemic risk, in particular attention having to be paid for it. So everybody here in Brussels working on the topic who worked on the DSA was aware of that. You know, it's not something somebody had to come up, but oh yeah, we got this piece of legislation that could work here. This was an hypothesis that had been discussed before. So I think the reaction was extremely late, and coming from the highest levels of the commission and coming from a woman, that was particularly disappointing for me. Then there's a second, if you allow me, there's a second consideration. So there are two political implications, I think. The first one, I already said, this is not fun, this is a message to women: stay out of politics, stay out of the power game, stay out of journalism, stay out of science, stay out of whatever counts for power, because you are an object and we will do this to you. We have the power to abuse you. The second one is, it's a message from Elon Musk to men in general, because it's saying to men, you support me, you know, I'm a great guy, I do this on it, all this innovation, I'm very rich. If you support me, you're gonna participate in this kind of power. And what kind of power is that? It's the power to use women. I'm giving you back the power to see women not as equal human beings who want to be respected, but as objects that you can abuse. And image-based abuse on social media or on porn platforms, it's real abuse. It's not only symbolical, but there is a symbolic dimension to this. And I think the parallel to the Epstein files is absolutely striking here, because this is exactly what Epstein did. I mean, it's not a new thing that corporations give this kinds of benefits. You know, there have been German insurance companies who took the people selling the insurance to pay for prostitution for them, basically. But usually it's an accessory to power. You know, men rise to power, and this is a part of it. And if you look at Epstein, he built this power network and his wealth on women. You know, nobody's saying this, but he was basically a pimp. It's a kind of language that nobody dares to use, but this is what he was, and he did it in a very sophisticated and a very elegant way because he knew how to play to these people and he knew how to satisfy their needs and how to speak their language. But the idea was the same. He gained power because he gave men power over women. And I find this parallel really striking. So you mentioned so Elon Musk was sort of in contact with him. It's unclear whether he did or did not go to the island. The email came up said, "Well, we're coming, Tallulah and me," and nobody knows whether he ever went. It's not important, For me, it's not even important if there was actual physical abuse, but he corresponded with this person and didn't find it particularly problematic. There's another bunch of tech billionaires who were in that network. Yeah, and I think this is a pattern. I mean, big tech abusing women in different ways and striking this unholy alliance, telling men, I give you women back as an object, like in the good old times where you could just decide, and we do it in a different way. We don't say it openly. And another example are the meta glasses, for example, that allow you to film women and to use that in a very intransparent way. It's power over women. And I think this is extremely concerning. So it's not a bug. When I started working on this in 2019, 2020, people said, "Oh yeah, AI discriminates women, but you also could AI to show that discrimination and fix it," and say, "Yeah, you should." And we should put it into law that when you can't fix it, you have to fix it. But where is the interest by the people controlling AI in doing it? There's no interest. And in fact, this is what happened. It's gotten worse than we could ever imagine.
So, Alexandra,
Yeah.
just a quick question. Do you think that the Commission would have been quicker, even during Davos, even whilst Trump was going, in his opinion, to attack and invade Greenland? Do you think the Commission would have been quicker if it had been men at stake rather than women?
Yes. I think so. It's hard to imagine a situation because there's a total asymmetry. So it's very, as you said before, Elon Musk also pictured himself on a bathing suit, but it's not the same thing. We all know that there's an asymmetry. So it's hard to imagine a situation where women are in charge and men are used as objects because this is just not in our history. It's not in our power structure. So I really struggle to imagine a situation where that had happened. But yes, as we know from medicine, I mean, it's like, what are the numbers? There's like 10 times more or 100 times more investment in erectile dysfunction than in endometriosis, which is an extremely dangerous and extremely painful condition. And yeah, if there was a way to turn this around, I think the Commission would have acted definitely.
You clearly said before that the enforcement is something that is missing at the moment from the Commission for this particular episode. But excluding for the moment enforcement, which is difficult to exclude, but just let's exclude it for now. Do you think that in the European Union we have enough tools to counterattack this kind of episodes and also the big tech powers, or we need something more, something different?
Well, we obviously don't, because otherwise we would be doing it. Well, I think it's as you said, it's hard to exclude. I'm sorry, it's hard to exclude enforcement because in terms of legal tools, it depends on what you mean by tools. If you speak of legal tools, I think we're not. I mean, if we started enforcing them, we would figure out where the gaps are, and there are certainly gaps. But I think if we had a robust enforcement, we would be in a completely different situation. And then we could figure out, do we still have gaps, or do we manage to establish a culture through enforcement of some rules? I mean, you also send a cultural message on how you want a society to work and what's acceptable and what is not acceptable in a society. So maybe there are some gaps, maybe there aren't if we just started enforcing. The other point, obviously, is what I mentioned in the beginning, and the fact that I work on technological sovereignty is having companies that have better products and they don't need to rely on the objectification of women to get men to support and use their products. I mean, that is also a very important tool, having better companies who think that, dignity of men and women is natural and normal, would be extremely helpful. And also companies who think it is normal to obey the laws of your country, rather than appealing to your president to ask a different continent just not to apply them.
I would like to play devil's advocate for a second because I was very struck by something you said just 2 minutes ago about it has to be also a cultural thing. Yes, we need to enforce the laws we have, but also it's a matter of culture. I mean, it's difficult to define a European culture, especially I would say in 2026. And I do agree with you that these power imbalances are some way imposed by the tech oligarchy, the tech bros, I would like to point out, because I mean, at the end of the day, they're all men. It's undeniable, but they are in the United States, and we are also seeing a U.S. administration that is particularly masculine. It's an administration that talks about the Ministry of War. It's incredible to think about that right now. But I would like to point out, I mean, the European 27 are not united, especially when it comes to women. And you said that you lived in Italy for 20 years. Sanremo, the festival, has just been happening in Italy, and everyone has been singing incredibly interesting songs, I'm sure. But the song that won is a song about a man that basically says, we will stay forever united like this, very tightly. And is a song about a marriage that the man almost imposes upon the woman. I'm not discriminating or talking bad about Sal da Vinci, but still, that's what's been happening in Italy. It's a European 27. It's one of the countries of the G7, and still this is happening. So how are you going to kind of find that unity? Are you sure that Europe really has as a value the protection of women and equality, and that tech should not discriminate against women?
I think also people who believe in lifelong marriage, most of them are against sexual abuse of women, and of image-based sexual abuse of women on social media or in the digital realm. So I think this is really a minimum consensus that we have among a lot of people. Even people who like to consume that kind of material, basically, most of them basically know it's wrong if the image is stolen and if it's published against the will of the woman. So I think we do have some kind of consent here. I mean, we all live in patriarchy. This is clear, but we've also come a long way. We've come really a long way, in the past centuries and the past decades, on some things. We have come a long way. And the fact that we have come a long way is reflected in the legislation we have. I mean, I think all European countries have constitutions that say men and women are equal, at least that. Most countries have very clear legislations on equal pay, on equal rights, and how to enforce these equal rights. And a lot has happened in the past years. I'm not saying we're an equal society. I'm the first one to say we are not, especially when it comes to violence and sexual violence, very much in particular. But I do feel that what the tech billionaires are right now doing in many different ways, and we're just touching on a few of them, there's many others, is telling men, there's been all this progress, and this is all woke stuff, and we can get rid of it, and we can go back to a time where you have a factual and legal right to use a woman as an object. And that is not what is codified in our laws. And that is not what the current culture of women and of a lot of men is. So I think you never really go back, but I think they're projecting, they're sort of shaping this kind of future where you have a lot of technological innovation, but where women are not human beings, not equal human beings, but objects that you can buy and sell and use and consume. And this is not where we are right now. I'm not saying, you know, in our societies are perfect and equal and it's not patriarchy, because it very clearly is. But what they have in mind is so much worse than where we are. And this is what makes it so dangerous.
So their algorithms are not showing what the situation in the world is right now, and especially in Europe, it's kind of making that situation real. Because if we think about the studies that there have been parties that, let's say, won a bit more of attention over some specific platforms. And I don't want to do a political speech here, but we know there's research. So let's say that let's make this clear. I think it's particularly important, especially before closing this conversation. It's particularly important to notice that the society that is viewed upon social media, and sometimes even elections kind of depict, is a society that has been also shaped by social media. It's not just social media depicting it, it's also shaping it. So it's a two-way kind of relationship.
No, social media is very powerfully shaping it. And I mean, I can say it out loud. I mean, it's very clear. We have a bunch of studies that show that, at least on X in particular, where it's easier to study, it's extremist parties who benefit from the algorithm, and in particular the far right. So it's not moderate conservative, it's really the far right. And for Germany, I mean, it's AfD, it's well known. This is what the studies say. For UK, it's Reform, but in particular, people like Rupert Rowe. So really the far right, also in UK, and in Poland, it's Konfederacja. So we have those studies, and we also know that when people go on TikTok and they're new and they follow accounts, you know, political accounts from all parties, like from 60 to 80% of the content they get is gonna be far right. We know that young boys get a lot of manosphere content, so Andrew Tate and the like, pickup artists, which is exactly about objectifying women, teaching young boys to see women as objects, appealing to, you know, their doubts around masculinity and all that, saying, well, if you want to be a great man, a strong man, you have to objectify and abuse women. This is really strongly coming from social media. This is really clear. So it's not societies influencing social media, it's social media shaping societies right now. Because right now, we don't really have a big freedom of choice on social media. The algorithms are decided or by the billionaires directly, as we can see by Elon Musk, or it's basically engagement-based ranking. So what elicits negative emotions, fear and anger, gets a lot more visibility. That's the basic rule. And that is hate, that is violence, that kind of content. And at the same time, it's pushing women heavily out of social media. So the number of women on social media, in particular on X, is decreasing, actually. Yeah. So, and this is something we got to also do something against with the Digital Services Act, because I think what is really important is to give people their conscious choice back on what kind of content there was. You know, I'm old enough to remember when the internet came into being, but before people had television. And what was really so great about the internet, that you didn't switch it on and it decided what you were seeing, but you decided what to see on the internet, and you went around seeing this, you know, reading these different blogs, and then video content came on and you chose it. And now you just have a timeline, and you don't really know where this timeline comes from, and it's some kind of engagement you have, and it's a data profile they have around you. And then it's a particular marketing interest, and people who are afraid, people who are very angry, tend to spend more time on the internet. So what these tech billionaires want is a lot of angry people, a lot of polarized societies. And that then turned into, and that benefits far right parties and political movements. And that's not good for women ever. At the same time, they realized that if they got this far right in power, that far right would hand the power over to them and get rid of all regulations and get rid of all rules. And this is the unholy alliance we are watching right now in the US between the tech companies and President Trump and the MAGA movement. The good news about it is that I think Americans are pretty sick of this administration because it's not delivering to their needs, it's delivering to the needs of billionaires. And well, in Europe, at least, we have the legislation, so I really hope we will start enforcing it, because otherwise this will turn people against tech, as is happening in the US. And I think that's not a good idea, because, I mean, the technological innovation should be good for us. We should leverage artificial innovation to make people's lives better, to save the planet. There's a lot of good things we could do, and we are not doing them because we are fighting this stupid fight.
Alexandra Geese, before we let you go, and I promise that this is the end of the podcast, especially because we know how busy you must be. You talked about Grok AI. We talked briefly about also the Meta glasses. What's the next challenge? Just a preview.
That's a good question. I don't know. I'm so much within the present challenges. I mean, agentic AI is certainly a big thing. Getting even more fragmented societies where people don't talk to each other anymore, but just to their AI agent. I think that is a big thing coming. In terms of general concerns, I mean, the energy consumption of data centers linked to large language models is totally unsustainable, economically and ecologically. I think that is a big challenge. So what I'm trying to do is actually not to see the next dangers, but to look at the next opportunities and how we can build more opportunities in Europe, because I'm a little bit sick, and a lot of other people are, from looking at all these dark aspects of the world. And I think there's also a lot of changes and opportunities that we should grasp in Europe and build in Europe. So I prefer to look at, the more positive sides of this kind of tech revealing itself as basically evil and bad for the people, not only for women, but in the end also for men, because, societies run by these men also reduce the life expectancy of men, not only of women, of men even worse. That their impact on men in the end is a lot worse. I mean, yeah, men live like 8 years less in Texas than in Sweden. Look into the numbers. Yeah, it's crazy. So, well, I think rather than looking at what are the next dangers and getting this feeling of, well, there's always another one, there's nothing we can do, let's look at what we can do in Europe to build better technology, and that really serves our people.
Well, a bright epilogue for a bright day in Brussels. Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today, Alexandra Geese. And this was all from the Legal for Tech, the podcast.
This episode was brought to you in partnership with DG Beetle. DG Beetle helps privacy professionals to stay up to date with the most important European documents in the AI, data and digital space every day. Curious to know more? Check out the link in our show notes.